Using or advocating for forceful training methods is so outdated. It's literally like having dinosaurs plow our fields. Would it look cool? No doubt. Do we know better now? Hell yeah, we do. Hey there, you are listening to the Cooperative Equine podcast, which was originally the Vet Care Training podcast. I'm Dr. Katarina Junghansová, I'm your host in this podcast, and I am the founder of the Cooperative Equine, an educational project that was previously focused on equine cooperative care and called Vet Care Training. Over the years, it has grown into something much bigger. I decided to change the name of this project, and I also created the Human-Equine Cooperation Framework, which is the foundation, it's the framework for everything I teach now. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. And before we start exploring the topic of today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, because it's the best way to help this podcast grow and reach more people. Now, let's get to the point. The other day, when I posted about the Human-Equine Cooperation Framework, somebody commented on my post something like, yeah, that's right, forceful training methods are so yesterday. And yeah, this is exactly the point. Forceful training methods or handling techniques are so yesterday. And it doesn't matter if we use them for a horse, a dog, or a child at the dentist. We know better now, so it's our duty to do better as well. As an equine veterinarian, and long before that, I have always wanted to handle horses and train horses and deal with them no matter what activity I was doing with them, the least stressful way, the least forceful way. In fact, I can't even use the amount of force some trainers use as their basal level because I just can't do it. There were times I could do it physically, but there was something in me stopping me. I literally couldn't be hitting and forcing horses the way the other trainers did, or the professionals like vets and farriers when the horses didn't want to stand still. I couldn't. There was something in me really stopping me from being too forceful with animals. And something that got me thinking, how can we do better instead? And I think this was the basis, the foundation for what I do now, because I've always wanted to be nice to animals, especially when I know they're acting out of fear or stress, which is 95% of the time, especially in situations like vet procedures. So the least thing they deserve is to be disciplined, is to be forced to suppress their quote-unquote unwanted behavior or difficult behavior or whatever we want to label it, because every behavior serves a need, whether it is communication or whether it is escaping from a life-threatening situation, right? So for me, it was kind of natural to always be searching for the least intrusive, minimally aversive, or Lima way of handling animals, which we now know are the principles of Lima. But back then, 20 years ago, as a horse girl, I knew very little about these principles. All I knew was that I don't want to handle horses with force. Then, many years later, when I found out as a vet student that animals can be trained to cooperate in their care, it literally blew my mind. I saw videos of tigers, lions, hyenas, zebras, you name it, right? I could be naming the animal species all day long, so many animal species cooperating in different procedures. And these weren't procedures like taking measurements or taking weight or something like this. These were invasive procedures like injections, blood draw, teeth brushing. I think we have all seen the video of a hippo volunteering in his dental care, right? So when I saw what could be done, I started thinking about why don't we do this with our horses? And this eventually led to me implementing what I knew from training into handling my horse patients that I named the non-conflict care or the non-conflict handling, because I didn't know that there were things like considerate care. I think maybe back then nobody was speaking about considerate care or low stress handling or anything like this. I don't know if it was a thing back then when I studied veterinary medicine. But anyway, I started putting these things into practice, and it wasn't about the equines or other animals cooperating voluntarily from the very beginning. I just used what I knew from training, and back in the day I was training horses with pressure, and I found out that medical procedures also put pressure on the horse, and that we can still have a conversation, we can still reinforce the desired behavior, even if it is not a true cooperation. So later on, learning about equine cooperative care or cooperative care in general was a game changer for me. And I thought, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. I only want to do cooperative procedures. I don't want to force horses anymore because we can do better. We can do it this way, so why doing it the old way? Well, now I know the answers, because we need to dedicate our time to train horses to cooperate, which is doable, but not everyone knows and not everyone is willing to work on this, which is kind of the big obstacle in the way towards the human-equine cooperation. So I would like to talk a little bit about the background. So when I realized I wanted to teach cooperative care, I founded an educational project called Vet Care Training, where I shared about how I teach horses to cooperate and what can be done, what's the theory behind, what's the science behind. And I have been doing it for several years, but now I decided this project needs a makeover and there is something that has to be done differently, because I have worked with clients who would get stuck at the exact same point, and I have also noticed certain patterns repeating themselves. And then I realized that, yeah, training cooperative behaviors is cool, but sometimes when things don't go well, it is about us not understanding the science behind it. It is about us not applying it correctly, not having good rate of reinforcement, not knowing the criteria and stuff. These things are so important, but oftentimes it goes way, way deeper into our subconscious patterns, into our nervous system and its regulation or dysregulation. And this is the core of the communication between the horse and the human. So how can we possibly help our horses or our equines to feel comfortable in a certain situation, to feel safe in a certain situation, when we ourselves don't feel safe in our bodies? And this is something that I only recently realized that I need to teach, because I have always considered these things programs that run in the background. Okay, if we start thinking about us as about computers or smartphones or something like this, there are certain programs that run in the background, and this is why you can open your laptop and write an email, or this is why you can send a message to someone using your smartphone, because somebody programmed it so that it's easy for you. This is actually a great analogy. Somebody programmed your devices so that communication is easy for you now. And in a way, this is what we need to do to ourselves too. So the foundation of the human-equine cooperation isn't teaching cooperative behavior, it's taking several steps that then result in the cooperation. So this is why I created the human-equine cooperation framework that I would like to tell you more about now. So what is the human-equine cooperation framework? Simply said, this framework helps us move beyond asking, how do I get my equine to cooperate? How do I train my equine to stand still for a farrier or an injection or whatever? To understanding the whole picture of human-horse cooperation so we can support our equines better. We can become the kind of humans that our equines feel safe learning with. And from that perspective, we can truly start building relationships and two-way conversation that ultimately leads to cooperation. So there are 7 pillars of the human-equine cooperation framework. The first one is knowledge, then there's awareness, the third one is guidance, the fourth one is tools, the fifth one is foundations, the sixth one is the consent, and the last one is cooperation. Each one of them has its own place and it's like a circle. So first you need to know, first you need to understand the science. You have to gain some knowledge before you start even thinking about training your equines or other animals to cooperate, because first you need to know how to do it, what's the science behind it, and how to apply it to practice. Okay, so this is knowledge. Then there's awareness. When you know how horses learn and what's the science behind the cooperation, behind equine cooperative care, you need to learn to read the horse. It is very important because in cooperation, we operate with consent. Consent can be a behavior, but we also want to look for an emotional or somatic consent. We need to be able to read our horse's body language. We need to become aware of what our horses or donkeys or mules are telling us, okay? So this is awareness. It's about us being able to read the horse, and it is also about us being able to respond to the subtle signals of our horses or our equine's stress. Then the third pillar is guidance, and this is all about you. This is so important because cooperation really starts with us. That's why I named it the human-equine cooperation. I put the word human first because we are the ones asking for cooperation. We are the ones who need to know how it works and how to structure the training session, how to work with the environment, right? So guidance, the third pillar, is all about us. And by the way, I have an epic online workshop focused on guidance for you. It's either coming soon or it is already released, depending on when you are listening to this episode. So I will put the link down below this episode. Check it out, because good chances are you have never seen anything like it. You have never done any workshop quite like this. And this is truly life-changing in the way of how you are able to guide your horse through the cooperation. So guidance, a very important thing. I named it guidance because I see the role of a human in the human-equine relationship as being a guide who speaks human, right? A guide who understands the human world and who is able to explain it to their equine. So this is the third pillar, the guidance. The fourth pillar is the tools. And this is where we move from theory and self-improvement to practice. Because to be able to cooperate with our equines, we need some tools for this. And by tools, I don't mean only physical tools like target and treat pouches and halters and lead ropes and stuff. But I also mean the tools that we learn, such as having good timing, being able to work with the environment, and things like these. So the fourth pillar is the tools. Then the fifth pillar is the foundation. It is so important to build proper foundation, not just for cooperation, but for communication in general. Almost every time when I would come across a non-cooperative horse or a horse who would have some problems, some training issues or behavioral issues, those horses were lacking foundations. Those horses literally didn't know what to do. They didn't understand the human conversation or the human's attempt to start the conversation. And all the issues stemmed from misunderstanding. So foundation is very important, and in the framework we are going to be focusing on building foundation that you can then use for further communication. So the sixth pillar is consent, and this is where we only move after we have built good foundation. Cooperative care or cooperation is about consent-based interactions. Consent is very important because it really empowers the horse to make choices, and it's really the cornerstone of cooperation, of any two-way conversation, because without consent, we wouldn't have any cooperation. We would be telling our horses what to do, and they would be either obedient or disobedient, right? So this is not the framework we are operating with. So having the equine's consent is such an important part of this, because consent creates cooperation. And this is when we are getting to the final one, to the seventh pillar, and it's cooperation. And this is when it gets really practical, and we can only get here after we have walked the whole path leading to it. And when you get there after having knowledge, awareness, guidance, tools, foundations, consent, you realize that the horse or the donkey or the mule or whatever equine you're training or you're working with, that they already know a lot and they are already waiting for you to start the conversation. So cooperation is really about making it practical and about teaching your equines to cooperate in different real-life situations, such as medical procedures, daily handling, tacking up, riding, and other interactions. So, this was the human-equine cooperation framework in a nutshell. And this is what I now use to talk about and teach the human-equine cooperation. I think now it's the time for the human-equine interactions to evolve, and it is time for us to move past forceful aversive training and handling techniques and to start seeking for cooperation, because cooperation is possible. It's doable. It's something you can learn. It's something you can cultivate with your equines. It isn't something that you are either born with or not, or it isn't something that only some highly intelligent equines can do. No, every horse person can learn the basics, and every equine can also learn the basics of cooperation. It's only the matter of knowing how to do it. And if you'll follow me, I'll teach you how to do it. We know better. We can do better. And this is why I created this framework, to help every compassionate horse person move towards cooperation. This is the year of the fire horse. So I invite you to tap into the fire horse energy and to gently burn down all of the old dysfunctional structures of aversive, forceful training, and to move towards the human-equine cooperation. I will be your guide. The framework will help you outline the path. So don't worry, you've got this. If you are interested in learning more about the framework, I have a free PDF guide for you. So I will put the link below this episode, so go ahead and download it. All right, so that was all I wanted to tell you today in this episode. And now, if you haven't subscribed to this podcast yet, don't forget to do so because it helps the podcast grow, reach more people, and truly be the change in the horse world. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this podcast episode with them. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye!